Meditation is an invitation to vulnerability, the rawness and openness of the heart, not because it's good for us, but because it moves us back to the truth that we are indeed held. If we can sit and open, we'll discover that the universe that has given birth to us really does hold us. A decompressing quote from Jack Kornfield, stemming from episode 294 of Heart Wisdom, The Secrets of Love and Attachment, Wise Relationships, Vulnerability, and the Joy of Nirvana. This is part 2 of the talk from last week, from March 8th, 1993 at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. And this one dives even deeper into attachment, and a term that I've never heard before, that Jack brings up quite a bit: wise attachment. It's a positive spin on a term that is normally quite demonized in spiritual circles. Attachment, in its most negative sense, we talk about quite a bit. This grasping, this running, addiction, fear. But what Jack invites us into is the other side of attachment, healthy attachment. This can be seen in secure connections, secure relationships with ourselves, with others, with the world around us, that are built on well-being and mutual love. But this cannot be done without vulnerability. The secret is, Jack says, the opposite of attachment is not detachment, but love. Because love does not seek to possess or control. It doesn't separate or fear. True love is the ability to be present without grasping. From this place, love offers its blessings. It makes me think of the image of a hand that's holding on to something it really likes. And the more it grasps on, the more that thing is squeezed. And that kind of pressure can push it to slip right out of your hands. And then I think of a story of Jack's friend Ram Dass. He was on stage after a talk back in the 70s, more than likely, as he was throwing flowers, which sounds like the Baba Ram Dass era. And he threw a flower to the crowd, a beautiful flower that so many tried to jump up and grab. But in this story, there was someone just sitting there, basking in the essence, the loving awareness that was around. And they watched as so many hands went up to try to grab the flower, and it floated right past all of the people grasping for it and clinging for it and wanting it. And it landed directly in the lap, in the hands of this individual who was meditating ever so gratefully. From this place, love offers its blessings. I was recently at the Neem Karoli Baba Hanuman Temple in Taos, New Mexico, for the opening of Siddhi Ma's Mandir, a great saint in her own right and closest devotee of Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba. And after the ceremony had taken place, I was helping clean up chairs and just doing whatever was needed seva-wise. And there was a group of people that were going around rather intensely saying, "Where are the flower necklaces that were around Siddhi Ma and Maharaji and Javanti Ma in the Mandir? We brought them and we deserve to have them back in our hands." And it was kind of a ruckus. And everyone that was doing seva just kind of kept with their flow. Later that night, I went to the temple to sing some Bajrang Bans. And when I got there, the Chowkidar Annapurna was there and said, "Hey, we can't sing right now. We actually need to clean up. Would you like to do the honors of mopping the floor and watching the temple to make sure nobody goes in, guarding the door, while I go get the keys, guarding the door to Ma?" So I very happily mopped the floor, did what I could do to clean up the mandir, and guarded the door, like Ganesh is supposed to do, guards the door to Ma. And when Annapurna came back, she looked down and said, "Oh, wow, look at these here." And there were the flower necklaces, the flower malas, that were being so intensely looked for way before. And she said, "Here." She put one around my neck and gave me the two others to bring home for devotees back where I lived, to be of service to them. And I'm not sharing this story to be like, "Look at me, Captain Seva." I'm sharing this story because the lesson, the secret that Jack shares in this podcast, the secret of love and attachment, is that true love is the ability to be present without grasping. And from this place, love offers its blessings. When we grasp on and say, "I deserve this and I want this and this is mine," it slips right out of our hands. But when we focus on stillness and love and service, love finally, true love, finally offers its blessings. And that is the big spiritual lesson of this podcast, among many others. My only bit of housekeeping right now is to please think of donating to Oasis Legal Services. Jack's daughter Caroline helped found this amazing nonprofit initiative which helps LGBTQ+ asylum seekers who have been experiencing persecution find citizenship, safety, housing, and a semblance of love in a rather crazy world. Please head to oasislegalservices.com to add your support this Pride Month. There's never been a more crucial time for an initiative like this, and I'd like to thank Oasis Legal Services and Caroline for what they are doing and bringing to this world. So other than that, let's dive in to episode 294 of Jack Kornfield's wonderful Heart Wisdom podcast. This is The Secret of Love and Attachment, Wise Relationships, Vulnerability, and the Joy of Nirvana. May you be happy and healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you trade your unhealthy clingings for wise attachment. And may you live in the joy of Nirvana. Namaste.
So we can get attached to pleasures, to things, to people, to the way people should be. We can also get attached to our ideas and views, how the world should be, whether it's communist or capitalist or socialist or democratic or republican or, Catholic or Protestant or all the views, the incredible number of views. And as the Buddha said, the more views you have generally, the more suffering you have, if you're attached to them. And it happens in big ways, creates warfare globally. It happens in small ways. "Why do you keep talking about my past mistakes?" said the husband. "I thought you said you'd forgiven and forgotten." And his wife replied, "I have, but I want to make sure that you don't forget that I've forgotten and forgiven." We kind of let go with one hand and kind of pick it up with the other and stash it in our back pocket. And it's not just individual, it's cultural. This passage that I read often from Joanna Macy, because it has such kind compelling truth in it. Even our scientists can see that there's no technological fix, no amount of computers or internet that can save us from population explosion, deforestation, climate disruption, continuing warfare and racism, poison by pollution, extinction of species. We are going to have to want different things, seek different pleasures, pursue different goals than those that have been driving us and our global economy. And we can feel the price of collective addiction and collective attachment in warfare, in environmental pollution, in all kinds of global suffering, in the fact that there is more money spent on weapons by tenfold than would feed every single hungry human being on earth. 10% of the world's weapons budget each year would feed every single hungry person. So attachment and addiction to pleasures, to things, to views and ideas, Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland or wherever else. And most deeply, the attachment or the addiction to the sense of separateness at all, the sense that we're somehow separate. And when we feel that separateness, that separate sense of self, then all the other kinds of needs and fears and addictions and so forth grow out of that. But is that who we really are? In a sense, this is the question of spiritual life. Who are we really? This amazing dance of incarnating in a human form and a human body. I think probably most of you in this room at one time or another have read some of Raymond Moody's works on near-death experiences and all these people who go through the tunnel and see the light and come back as this woman. Then I saw this radiant light, the most beautiful thing that I had ever experienced. And it came into me, and it was me. And in my heart arose the question, was it worth it? Was it worth it, the end of life? And looking back, I could say yes, because I'd learned to love. Or this book, similar to it, based on his work, called Closer to the Light, which is a physician's interviews with children who had near-death experiences, who were in comas and died and came back. And it happened because this Seattle physician was working in the emergency room with this young girl who'd come in and had drowned in a swimming pool and was in a coma for a week and finally came back. And he wanted to know what had happened. Had she hit her head or did someone throw her in the pool? Because he wanted to know how to treat her medically when she finally woke up. And he said, so what happened to you? And she said, do you mean before I met the Heavenly Father or after? And he said, well, tell me a little more. And she said, well, there was I was in the pool, and then this beautiful woman who had, this long white robe came and took my hand. And then I saw my grandparents who had died. And then I saw Jesus and the Heavenly Father. And he said, do you want to go home? And I said, I am home. And then he said, but how about your mama? And all of a sudden I had a vision of my mother and her tears, and I realized I had to go back for my mother. And this book is just filled with stories that children tell of what it was like to go into this light, if you will. And in the Buddhist tradition, as one dies, as in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, someone will come to your bedside, and read into your ear, O nobly born, O you who are the son or daughter of the Buddha, the son or daughter of a good family, you who have a noble birth because of your good heart, which is every human being. Remember the clear light. Remember the pure, clear, white light from which everything in the universe comes, to which everything in the universe returns, the original nature of your own heart and mind. The natural state. Let go into this light. Trust it. Merge with it. It is your own true nature. It is home. But the idea of spiritual life isn't to wait till you die, basically. To remember this. You know the old Hindu song where the baby in the womb is singing, don't let me forget who I am. And then the verse changes as soon as the baby's born. Oh dear, I'm beginning to forget already. I liked it when the Dalai Lama was talking about these teachings of what it means to die and who we really are, what brings us into life, incarnation. And he said, quite honestly, I am kind of looking forward to dying. And said, why is that? He said, because I'm curious. I would like to see if all these teachings that I've learned, whether they're really going to work or not. What an amazing thing to say. The addiction, the craving, the need that we all know in ourselves comes from an inner sense of emptiness, from what's called the body of fear or the small sense of self, the sense of separateness that maybe never was held or never was loved and wants that now. And the extremes of this separation lead to what are called attachment disorders, the inability to attach. And there are clinics and attachment disorder therapies, especially for high-risk children, certain ones. And I know, for example, a friend who adopted a child from Russia who was in an orphanage. And she said the orphanage was just terrible. The children were beaten and treated terribly, but also it was so poor in this particular orphanage that they didn't have shoes and coats, which meant for the 8 months that it was winter, they couldn't go outside. They had to stay inside, a lot of them in each little room. It was horrible, kind of prison-like conditions. And this child came, it was a beautiful child, but the child would scream and break things and lie and do all the kind of things of somebody who wasn't attached to another human being. Terrible kinds of things, and hit and bite and really harm other children without so to speak, without a conscience. And the particular kind of therapy that they tried, which worked, was called holding therapy, in which the child was held on two people's laps and not released and allowed to get up, and struggled and screamed and bit and cursed and so forth for hours and hours until it absolutely broke down in a kind of bondage. And then when the child broke down and couldn't go any further and just began to weep and sob and kind of regressed, then the mother would hold the child like it was a baby. And they did this a series of times. A terrible thing to do to a human being, to completely restrain them, and not let them go no matter what happens. But in a sense, what it did was to break that whole structure of defenses that the child had built to survive, and start parenting again with real attachment and trust instead of that which was absent. So that's the kind of extreme. We need a certain kind of attachment, which we might call connectedness, well-being, mirroring. And to a lesser degree, we all share this. This body of fear, this small sense of self, arises at times with low self-esteem and unworthiness and fear of rejection and fear of loss and fear of what they'll say and fear of our feelings, of our grief or our fear or our rage or our love. Some people, that old cartoon from Jules Pfeiffer, where one woman and a man are kind of together, and she's standing in the corner with her arms outstretched, and he's kind of cowering a little bit. And she's saying, "But I love you." And he looks back at her and says, "Don't you threaten me," But we all have, at times, fear, whether it's fear of rejection or fear of dependence or fear of love or fear of our grief or our rage and so forth. We get lost in this small sense of self. To meditate, to undertake a spiritual practice, is an invitation to discover a wholeness that is who you really are. To include your body and your heart and your mind and your deepest longing and your rage and your fear and your love and all of that, to make a space of compassion big enough to include all of our humanity. Kabir, the Indian mystic poet, puts it this way: we sense that there is some sort of spirit that loves birds and animals and the ants. Even in the midst of our fear, we know this. Perhaps the same one who gave a radiance to you in your mother's womb. Is it logical you would be walking around entirely orphaned now? The truth is you turned away yourself and decided to go in the dark alone, perhaps to protect yourself. And now you are tangled up in others and have forgotten what you once knew. Kabir says, who are you really, wanderer? Why not remember today? So our meditation in that way isn't to make ourselves different or become a different person, but rather it's to discover that wholeness that is there and available to us in any moment. There's a famous story in India about this possibility that spiritual life offers of the sage Nagarjuna. And because Nagarjuna was such a wise monk and teacher, at one point the king in that area, the emperor, had a golden begging bowl made to offer to him. So here's this wandering mendicant with this incredible gold begging bowl. He was sleeping one night, wandered to a temple, starting to sleep, and all of a sudden he saw someone in the shadows and this thief kind of waiting till he fell asleep to come and steal the golden bowl. And he said, you there, thief, come here, please, in the kindliest way. He says, please take this so that you won't disturb my prayers in the mornings. And the thief's eyes got wide. And he said, you mean I can have it? Nagarjuna says, you may take. And the thief couldn't take it. And he said, you have something that I want that's even more than this golden bowl. This is really what meditation offers. There's a possibility of healing, of the only way to work with that hole in ourselves is actually to accept it, to love it, of sitting with our hole, the suffering, the pain, the fear, all those pieces, and discovering that it's possible to rest in our being, to not run away on one hand, to not seek anything on the other, really not trying to be different. Instead, to touch our pain and loss and sorrow and incompleteness, our brokenness, with compassion. So that when we sit, we expand our heart, and it's not just my pain or your pain or my loneliness or your loneliness, but it's the loneliness we all share as human beings. It's the sorrows we carry for what goes on in this world and what's happened to us. It's not my pain, but it's the pain of being human. And when we sit with that compassion and hear all the stories of love and hate and ambition and fear and all that society wants us to be and all that we try to do, if we do that and let this great stillness that is always here show itself, we discover a kind of inner knowing. My teacher called it the one who knows in us, that place of wisdom. And we can be true to our heart, true to ourselves. Pablo Neruda, maybe the greatest poet of the century. I wish I could read it in Spanish. El miedo, fear. Everyone is after me to jump through hoops, whoop it up, play football, rush about, even go swimming and flying, fair enough. Everyone is after me to take it easy. They all make doctor's appointments for me, eyeing me in that quizzical way. What's going on? Everyone is after me to take a trip, to come in, to leave, not to travel, to die and alternately not to die. It doesn't matter. Everyone is spotting oddness in my innards, suddenly shocked by radio awful diagrams. I do not agree. Everyone is picking at my poetry with their relentless knives and forks, trying no doubt to find a fly. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the whole world, afraid of cold water, afraid of death. I am, as all mortals are, unable to be patient. And so, in these brief, passing days, I shall not take them into account. I shall open up and closet myself with my most treacherous enemy, Pablo Neruda. There's so many things that want us to be something for them. And it's only when we take the time to sit and really listen that we can make a light of ourselves. The last words of the Buddha, make of yourself a lamp, make of yourself a light, and be true to our inner knowing. And if we are, that includes our sorrows. It includes the wisdom that acknowledges there will be loss, there will be change, there will be suffering, there will be grief. That is the truth. But out of everything that's lost, something new also is born. So often, we want to be loved. We want to be held. And it's so hard to be vulnerable. Meditation, in a way, is an invitation to that vulnerability of the rawness, the openness of the heart. Not because it's good for us, but because it moves us back to the truth that we are held. That if we can sit and open, we'll discover that this universe that has given birth to us really does hold us. And in that, we gradually learn to move from unhealthy attachment to a kind of wise relationship and interdependence, a trust. When the Heart Sutra says form is not different than emptiness, and emptiness is not different than form, we can get all confused in these Buddhist teachings about non-attachment and emptiness. But I think wise attachment is really the capacity to be present in a moment of holding the cup of tea and feeling its warmth in your hand and savoring the odor of it and feeling it as it goes down your throat and realizing that this moment is just the moment of tasting the tea and it will never happen again. Or the moment of looking in the eyes of your lover or seeing a sunset that won't happen again. Or even an amazing and phenomenal traffic jam, on the way into or out of San Francisco. The biggest traffic jam you have ever seen. I mean, it is amazing. Stupid, it's true, but it's amazing. Here it is, all these multicolored cars built these phenomenal machines to carry people at high speed, and they're all sitting there. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is the capacity to be present that transforms our life. Whether it's in our work, or in our art, or in our cooking, or eating, or lovemaking. And that capacity for presence grows in commitment and intimacy. Intimacy is really contact or presence over time. You don't get intimate like that. Intimacy actually grows through this capacity to be present, sustained over time. So if you come to meditate, it won't be fun. And it won't be bad. It will be all of that. You'll be happy and sad and lonely and bored and excited and interested and you'll suffer and you'll have bliss if you're lucky. But the idea isn't that some experience happen. Rather that we find that ground of the heart that can be open and free no matter what the changing circumstances of the world. A kind of inner joy. The Buddha speaks of it in these terms. Says in the Dhammapada, live in joy and love even among those who hate. Live in joy and health even among the afflicted. Live in joy and peace even among the troubled. Live in joy without grasping possessions. Move like the shining ones. Nirvana, which is the absence of suffering, doesn't mean that the world goes away. Nirvana is the absence of struggle with the world as it is. You could say that there are two aspects to nirvana. One is compassion, because we're so open that we see the world and our heart is really allowed to touch it all. And the other is this great spacious wisdom that sees, as one Zen master said, nirvana is so open and joyful The whole idea of spiritual renunciation is a kind of joke, trying to make oneself let go of ordinary life and pleasures. Nirvana is so open and joyful, it's so much more than any of the small pleasures we grasp after. You don't renounce the world, you gain the world. And it doesn't mean nirvana is at the end of, you go to Asia and spend 40 years in Kyoto sitting, facing the wall in the Zen monastery, and then you have a moment of nirvana. Nirvana is actually also our human nature and our birthright. My teacher Buddhadasa called it a great public health measure. And he said, study your life and you'll see moments of nirvana every day when you lie down and you want to let go and go to sleep. Who doesn't like that? That's a moment of nirvana. When you're there in the middle of some conflict and you say, wow, I'm really in this conflict, and you just let it go for a moment and breathe, is a moment of nirvana. When you're in the traffic jam and you're all worked up about it and you realize, I'm not going anywhere, and you feel your breath, change the station, listen to some nice music and say, here we are. Where are you going anyway? It's a moment of nirvana. The wise heart has this great capacity for freedom, and in this freedom, the capacity for commitment and love. And the secret, and in one way, an answer to that koan I spoke of at the beginning about attachment and non-attachment. The secret is that the opposite of attachment is not detachment, but love. Because true love does not seek to possess or control. It doesn't separate or fear what is there. True love is the ability to be present without grasping. And love offers its blessings. You feel it so directly with your children, if you have children, or your nieces or nephews or whatever. If you want them to be a certain way and try to control them and grasp them, they don't like it. And you don't like it either after a while. But if you love them, you can be there to support and bless and benefit and offer what's necessary, not because you're trying to make them a certain way, but because they are a part of you, as we are a part of one another. The opposite of attachment is not detachment, but love. And that love which doesn't seek to possess or control, that isn't afraid, that is what gives freedom to the heart. Freedom to be in the presence of fear and hate and delusion and all those things without getting lost in them, because they're part of our experience, but they're not who we really are. And that freedom isn't far away. It is available right now. And in fact, it's what's listening to these words. It knows. So let's sit for a minute.